Welcome to Real Talk in ELT, a podcast that talks about the reality of teaching English. Again, because it messed up because there was a bunch of things going on. Okay, no, I gotta open it again. Welcome back to another episode of Real Talk in ELT. I'm here with Henrique. Hello, sir.
Hello, Kelly. It's a pleasure to be here.
Welcome. Okay, so let me introduce you, and then we'll get into our talking points. The last name. Okay, I'm gonna try it. Henrique Antunis.
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 Yes. Yes.
Antunis. Okay. I failed that one. Has been teaching English for over 15 years. He holds a degree in advertising, theater, and is currently studying pedagogy. He holds the CPE and the CELTA. Wow. Advertising, theater, and then, well, obviously you're a teacher now, so the pedagogy makes sense. But advertising and theater, how did that happen?
Well, that's a crazy thing. That's a really crazy thing. Well, I
Jealous.
wanted to I wanted to become an actor by when I was a child due to like soap operas, Brazilian soap operas, and etc. So once I left high school, I didn't know what course to do, so I took acting. So I'm a professional actor. Yay!
Does this help you in the teaching profession?
I'm sorry.
Does it help you, like being a professional
Oh,
actor?
absolutely. Especially because I used to be shy. Like I was the shy
Um,
student, like that nerdy, and I would like blush in front of a lot of people. And like with theater, this became like so much more natural. And I feel like I can put like any face on and deal with whatever situation life throws at me.
Do they also do in theater? Do they also do kind of like, oh, because you have the combo of theater and advertising. So maybe in one or both, do they talk about public speaking and like getting a message across and talking to people? And do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, mostly I would say in advertising more
Yeah,
because technically you have to convince people to buy your product or that your product is the best or whatever.
right.
Yes, but when public speaking concerning theater, it's like the message we want to transmit to the audience, and sometimes that message is not that clear, right?
Yeah.
It would be in a product, for instance.
Yeah, but you would have like projection and like presence. Oh, I feel like that actually, it seems very random, but it's actually quite connected. I feel like that like will totally help you in the classroom. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
it did help. I'm proud of the track of this track that my life had.
yeah, like the skills kind of, I mean, they seem disconnected, but really they're not because all of these skills do kind of converge into communication. So, that makes
Hmm.
it quite good
Hmm.
for you. Speaking of communication, classroom teaching, so let's get into your story because, well, first of all, you're a small business owner, yes?
That's right.
And you have a kind of a boutique, right? Because it's very, well, tell us about your school.
Well, it's a very small school.
Hmm.
It's run by the only and only myself. Uh, I have four teachers working with me. Everything happens online, and well, it all starts with a needs analysis, right? The student comes, and each one of them is going to have their own needs, their own package, their own tools that we're going to be using or not. And well, the school is in its first year, so it's a baby, and I'm so excited that to
So
to have come to this point of having a school and managing everything according to my own beliefs.
okay, that's where we're getting at. So you've got this place, it's been running for a year. I'm assuming that it's been extremely successful because I know you and I know your beliefs and how you treat people. So I'm very excited for that. But why did you go from institutions and then deciding, because this is a common pathway. Like a lot of people start in institutions because they need to get their feet wet, right? And they start teaching and that they all go to institutions, whether it's private language institutions or regular schools. Why did you leave? There's because everybody wants to start their own business now. It's like mass exodus. Everybody's leaving the schools. So what was the catalyst for you?
I feel like the two main things that I didn't get from schools, so the two main reasons are the two things I try to practice the most at mine.
Mm.
One of them is financial, because I've always felt like I was not getting paid enough, like in this big institution.
Preach.
Who is, right? And then working long hours and being underpaid. And
Hmm.
so this is one of the things that I try to bring my teachers.
Right.
The other thing is training. I always felt like there was perhaps a training the beginning of the semester of, like, let's recycle some communicative speech. Um, and that was a wrap for the whole semester. And then see you later, to the training of the upcoming semester. So
Yeah.
what I try to bring as well is to have a training at least once a month in at any perspective of teaching to my teachers. So
Oh, that's nice. Do you do it or do you bring outside people in?
both,
Nice.
both. Yes.
Okay.
So the most recent we had was on IELTS.
Nice.
So I brought a teacher who worked with me, who studied with me, who took the CELTA with me.
Mm,
And well, she gave my teachers an overview. It was super fun, and I'm always listening to what they think they need, right? So,
okay.
um, like, according to their own classroom experiences, from all the tools I give them, what do you feel like is still missing? What else do you think we should work on? Instead of just coming and, like, throwing at them things that I think they should know, and then that not being necessarily what they need when they're actually teaching real students.
Yeah, so needs analysis kind of goes both ways, right? You have needs analysis of the student, the incoming students, and then needs analysis of your teachers, like what's going on
Absolutely.
with it. Yeah.
And they have different
Super
needs as
important.
well. They're super different because they come from different parts from Brazil, right?
Mm,
So they're not all from São Paulo, for instance.
nice.
And I have a Spanish teacher too, right? So
Oh,
how do you
cool.
transfer some of the concepts and etc. to? It's hard to even translate some of the concepts we're so used to hearing in ELT, to Portuguese, and then when you say it out loud, like,
It
it,
sounds a little bizarre. Yeah.
yeah, it's like you're dealing with something so different from what we're used to.
Right. Okay. Okay, we're gonna diverge here. So we'll go down the training rabbit hole, but then I do want to get back to finances. Um, so as a school owner, and you have these teachers working for you, and you're trying to assess their needs and get them training that they need, um, based on the different scenarios they're encountering with their students, how do you prioritize your own, like you, Ihiki, your CPD? Because as the owner of the school, right, it's also important that you continue growing. And it's how do you keep that balance between this is what my teachers need, or I have to make an executive decision and this is what I think they need, even though they don't maybe realize it, but it's going to be good for all of us. I guess if that makes sense, if that's clear.
I think, first of all, everything is so scary because there's I'm
I'm
scared
scared.
all the time, all
Ah,
the way scared, because there's no guideline that somebody wrote and then you have just to follow, and then you see, well, according to the ruler, I am in this point of the process.
yeah, there's no
So
checklist, right? Like it's
yeah,
willy
so
nilly.
for instance, the last year was when I took the CELTA was like a big decision for me, because I felt like it was kind of overdue,
Right.
for me to do it. But this year specifically, since it's my last year at college, I said, well, I think this is the year to focus on, like, wrapping up college with, like, the highest merit I can,
Right.
and finish that. But I think there's a lot of uh, I feel like the communication that we have, like, that we have at like teacher and teacher and teacher versus me, I
Yeah.
feel like this really helps us all to be kind of the same page,
Okay.
right? And in one way or another, there's one teacher, for instance, who's we had some problems, and we thought about having pronunciation courses, and he's taking a, like, I'm sponsoring his pronunciation course, for instance, and all of the others know that they also have this possibility. If you feel like you need to dig into a topic that, I don't know,
Mm.
business English, that Kelly Pennington happens to be an amazing teacher on, they could for sure look for courses, and I will enroll, and they would be like sponsored at least half of the course I try to sponsor.
That's
Because I
amazing.
feel like,
That's amazing.
yeah, because I feel like I mean, I like being the boss and having everything under my control, but I don't know everything, right? Like, I'm not like, I know a little about a lot of things, but I don't know everything, and I cannot like overcharge myself in order to say, well, no, yes, of course, I can, sure, a training about that, sure, a training about, sure, like
It's like
I
it's such a
cannot.
wonderful and like good feeling to hear somebody. It's so realistic. Like you have to have a little humility being the boss, right? Because you can't control, well, you can control everything that happens in your business, but you're not the owner of all the knowledge. And that's one thing that I think sometimes people run into when they're running small schools, that they think all the training has to be coming from in-house. And a lot of the training can come in-house, meaning like the owners or the coordinators or whoever can give the training. But gosh, that's such a huge responsibility to absorb and understand and get all of that information to be able to really specialize down and give like really niche type of trainings. So it's nice to hear that people are like you are humble enough to say, listen, I don't know everything. I'm good at a lot of stuff, but there's some specialties and there's some nuances that are not under my purview, and I have to go outside of myself to find who can help my teachers.
Exactly, like in matters of pronunciation, for instance, just as I mentioned about my teachers,
Yeah.
uh, this one, he's taking classes with Taylor Vega
Mm-hmm.
and Mark Hancock, and I
Nice.
think like they are one of the best, if not the best, in the market. And I feel so secure, like, instead of overthinking and perhaps like preparing training and researching for things that I kind of know, but I'm not like a master of that craft.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
going to send them like to a person who already does it and who knows and knows the craft so well, and it's going to provide a great training. And like, we have sessions as well to talk about how the classes are going, and
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing. Like, it's super fantastic. Are many small things that I myself wouldn't have, like, I wouldn't have had the thought of going that deep or going that direction, and I'm like, so
Yeah, there's like these small insights that the people like Taylor and Mark do a fantastic job. And so because they've been working with it and they're so critical and they've done it for so many years, they start acquiring all of this experience and knowledge, and they have wonderful insights. I mean, Taylor's great. She's been on the podcast before,
mhm.
and so it's you know I'm sure that she and Mark would say something, and I'd be like, well, oh, really? No kidding. Okay. Because it just like pronunciation is not something that we dig, like all teachers dig that deeply into, but they've really, really studied it. So
Yeah, and I feel like it's like taking a lot of like a load off my shoulders, like,
yeah.
for like having this. It's a small thing, but I didn't lose any more hair than the ones that I already don't have, you know.
Love it. Okay. Okay, so then let's switch, because you said it was kind of a two-pronged thing that happened. So the finance. So all teachers, overworked and underpaid. I mean, that's the name of the game of teaching. So, without getting into specifics, how do you provide financial support beyond the training that you already provide for them? But how do you, I guess from a business perspective, we can only charge students so much and we can only pay our teachers so much because we have to also pay for all of the other things that go into having a business, right? Like there's, the taxes and the accountants and, all of the fees that we have to pay and making sure we have the materials and setting up the professional or the paid versions of Zoom or whatever. So there's cost that goes into it. So how do you again, not specifics of like numbers, but how do you balance that? What's fair to you and how do you kind of figure that out from a administrator's perspective?
Well, I remember a few years ago when I started working at this institution, and the owner was very honest with
Mm,
me. She told me like, well, this is the amount of money I make per student, and then she divided this by four and
okay.
said, well, 25% is here, 25% there, blah, and 25% is the teacher.
Mm.
I remember that those specific words came like like, am I only 25% of this whole thing? Like I am the person.
Oh, you like saw like I'm only valued at 25% of like this student's learning process.
Yes, like I am
Mm,
25% of this, like, but I am the person who's taking like the bus, the train, flying to get to the student's house. At that time, there was a student, well, as you know very well, I
mm,
teach English, but one of the students once asked me like for Spanish class. And like it was so crazy, like I didn't know what to do. So kind of facing all of this, it was all like Henrique. I was the one who was there dealing straight with the student,
right.
and so it kind of like kind of took me to the mentality that I have today. And again, I'm not sure if it's the right mentality because there's no right book, but my teachers get paid 55% of what the student pays me.
Okay.
So I feel like that's fair. Like he's like they are doing most of the job. I'm here with a lot of support. I'm not sure. Like I could be taking more advantage and going 25%, for instance,
Mm.
but I just don't feel like it would be fair, and I wouldn't be happy about it.
Like
Be-
at the end of the day, you have to put your head down on your pillow and be able to sleep and live with yourself and the amount that you're paying the teachers, right? It's
Yeah, I
yeah.
could, but again, when I think I told some people this, like, and I always wait for like people who, like they're gonna judge me, like, how come you're paying that much? And I'm like, nobody has judged me so far, but I feel like it's coming, like, are you insane? You're paying too much.
You're
And
bracing for impact. No, I actually if you can make, I think if you're making smart financial decisions and you're able to keep your business profitable. I mean, again, we don't know the idiosyncrasies of all of the things that you pay, but if you can keep your business profitable, you have a salary and your teachers are making a good salary as well. I I don't think that I don't think that anybody can judge you. I mean, you're doing what you feel is right. It might not be right in their eyes because, they have different priorities, but one of the things that we had talked about for a while, well, we talk about a lot of stuff. But one of the things that we had talked about that was kind of like the genesis of this idea of why we put these talking points together was that we have similar ideas about how teachers need to start valuing other teachers to be able to make actual impactful changes in the market, right? So everybody complains about, oh, teachers get paid terribly, and we have to remove, I guess we can say we can remove the private, they're the public schools and things like that. We're talking about private language lessons because that's our context. Um, but if we don't start valuing each other, then how do we have the expectations that, you know, the whole educational market is going to start valuing teachers? Like, we have to value each other. I'm going to give you a quick anecdote because this happened to me in between our conversations and us recording this podcast. So I was contacted by a private school, and they wanted to have training for their teachers. There's 11 of them, and they wanted 3 hours of training, and which is quite a task. And they were very, very specific about what they wanted. They wanted to talk about, well, they actually wanted me to differentiate their entire course books for them on three different levels for like the young learners, the middle schoolers, and the high schoolers. I was like, oh my god, like I can't do that in 3 hours. But they wanted workshops and they wanted formulas and they wanted, you know, material, and I was like, okay, this is a lot. So I reduced expectations when I had the interview with the the client. But then, and I said, okay, and do you have a budget range for this? Because it's going to take, first of all, I have to make sure that my research and the theory that I'm giving to people is well founded and well documented. So that includes me reading and preparing a presentation, but then also preparing materials and activities and tasks that are going to be suitable for the three different levels that they're teaching. And it's going to be 3 hours, and there's 11 teachers, so I'm going to have to make sure that I can manage all that. I mean, it's an intensive job. It's not something that's like, okay, in an hour I can put it together. I could, but it wouldn't be to the standard that I would find acceptable. And they they came back. So I sent a proposal to them with an estimate of a value, and I was quite generous in the fee. We'll say I did not charge them. I probably charged them about, I don't know, 55% of what I normally charge for
Mm,
private teaching.
mhm.
And they came back and they told me that, well, I had sent it to the person on WhatsApp because they needed to get it approved through the board. And they said, is there any way that you can reduce this? And I said, no, I'm already giving you a huge discount. Like, this is because you had told me what the range is. And so I, you know, calculated to fit into the range. And this is what I can do because, you know, if you want me to work less and have a lower quality course, then we can take some hours out or something like that. But this is the price of my work. And they said, well, that's not that we'll
It's
see
not
what
gonna
happens. And they never responded. So there was no response afterwards. But it's a private school that charges in the range of 2,000 reais a month per student. They have an English department with 11 teachers, and they wanted to do a 3 hour training, and they were willing to pay less than 50% of the fee for one student for the month. So they wanted to pay less than, I think they wanted to go less than 1,000
for a
for
3 hour.
for a 3 hour training course for 11 teachers. That's very, very specific to their, like, I would have to look and do some like course book analysis of three levels of course books and
So
prepare a presentation of theory. And I was almost, I'm relieved that they didn't respond to me because then I didn't have to like deal with that whole situation. But at the same time, I was like, this is
how does it stand? Like what is the investment that they're like making per teacher, right? Like if
they
you've
wanted to pay, I think I wanted to pay like less, if I did the calculations, or I don't know, it was something around, they wanted to pay less than 40 reais per teacher per hour for like a very, very specific training. And I was
yeah,
like, okay, but I don't know where you're going to find somebody that will do that.
yeah, I don't well, you can find people who are going to do it? Are they going to be with that level that you can provide?
But this is why I brought this up, because we had talked about this, like if teacher, because I was dealing with the coordinator of the English department, so not even the teacher valued the content that I was going to, like, they didn't, it seemed as if this was the impression that they didn't value the amount of work and the amount of, the degree of complexity of kind of putting all of that together and really making it a course that the teachers can walk away with lots of skills and ideas, and you know what I mean, like some good foundational theory in their head. That wasn't the interest of them. It seemed that they just wanted to pay the cheapest price for prepaid materials.
And that's the thing, right? Because it's like if you want to go that way, it's so easy to do it, right? Like
Sure.
you can like as we mentioned before, I could be giving all the trainings possible for my teachers, be pronunciation, IELTS, blah blah blah. But is it gonna be worth in the sense of developing them, or are they just gonna be like, okay, we have to go there because he's the boss, and Mr. Boss, we're gonna be there for his training, right? So I feel like when it comes to finances,
Mm.
uh, we think about the capitalist side of schools, and it seems like people want to turn the other way. Like, no, we're school. We don't have to think about money. But the moment that you do, it's like too much. Mm-mm. No, no, no.
Yeah, it's a weird, balance. Like we have to, if we if we want educators to have like qualifications or training, or to have some skills to be able to, that they can replicate and build on for future years, then we have to invest in that. I mean, there's no, whether you like it or not, we live in a capitalist society, right? So like people need to make money because they need to pay their bills and do everything else, and that's currently how we exchange for goods and services. So accept it or not, that's how it works. But the value that you get, I think it's hard for people to rationalize the value of spending money with um non-concrete things. Like, I'm going to teach you something, I'm going to give you, like, what's in my head, I'm going to give you that knowledge, and it's something, there's a disconnect there about, we're not really valuing that.
True, true.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, because your teachers, that they receive like quite a good chunk of the fee that you charge to your students, because you value what they know. And
And what they're doing from every single perspective, like even for like the ring rolling, are students renewing their contracts or not? That's on the teacher, right? Like he's like they're taking care of the students, so
hmm
they're responsible for that, for maintaining their own money as well. Like I know the school won't break if a student or two they quit, for instance.
hmm
But I know that I'll be trying my best to cater for the students and the teachers' needs as well. I feel like it's kind of a dreamer way of tackling business.
yeah,
And
I like it, you're doing it a different way.
going where no man has gone before.
No, but it's important. I mean, we have to value like your professionals. If you say like, this is my team and I pay them well and I invest in them and I really want them to, become the best type of professional, because if you have good professionals working at your school is successful, right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And that was one of the actually when I was thinking about like transitioning from a private person to becoming a school,
Mm,
that was one of the main deals. It's not just because like I have this four people that I'm going to be sending them students, they need to be to give like a quality as high as possible, like the same level of quality the student would have with me, who was the original business,
Right.
right? So I have to shape them in my and mold them according to what I believe, and I think that they've been doing like a very good job. um like I have basically zero complaints of all of them. I watch their classes, I give feedback on their lessons. I think it's going well, and I'm not hungry in the sense of, oh my God, I need 11 students by the end of March. It's like, well, if it happens, fine. I'm always looking forward to having more,
Right. Yeah.
but I'm not going to, I don't know, like start super advertising a way or another just in order for more students to come, and
Mhm.
then like not being able to tackle individual needs, because that's what the business is about, right?
Okay, so primarily do you work with students on like a VIP kind of one-to-one type of
One on one,
classes?
yes, all of
One-to-one.
them, all of
All of
them.
them. Oh, okay. And
Mhm.
in the majority of them, well, you said that some of them, well, you have a Spanish teacher, and then are they primarily IELTS takers? Are they general English, or is it just a mix of
It's a mix. It's a very big,
business,
but
general?
most of them are adults, I'd say.
Okay.
Most of them are doing it due to their jobs,
Okay.
maybe not because they need it now, but they know they're like there's a position coming, like a managerial position, and they
Hmm.
want to be ready for that.
Yeah.
Or somebody from abroad is coming for a conference, or
Mhm.
things of this of, well, I
It's
think that
high stakes. I mean, it's high stakes for them because they see potential in careers or potential in their life. I mean, when we think of like the business English side of it, because that's what I'm familiar with. Business English side of it is you have to be really familiar with it, and good at your job, but also recognize that if these people don't have results, if they don't make progress, because your teachers are not trained well or they don't have the skills to be able to attend to the needs, those people could potentially lose their livelihood, right?
Mhm.
Like your
That's true.
students, your clients could lose a promotion, lose their job, get transferred to a place that they don't want to be. So like it's very high stakes for these adults, and it's something that the 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 weight of that is definitely put on the teacher's shoulders.
Absolutely. And of course it helps somehow with the word of mouth, right?
Oh
That's
yeah.
how most of students still come. It's because, well, Fulano told me about your school. I wanted to know how it works, and like what's availability and blah
Mm-hmm.
blah blah. Please. This is how this whole business was built. So via word of mouth. I know I have the Instagram, I have other ways as well, but word of mouth has been everything. And they wouldn't come, neither come nor stay, right? If the service was not good, I suppose.
Certainly not. Well, and they wouldn't be recommending or telling other people, and spreading your business around if they didn't have some sort of benefit from it. So the quality of it is very, very important.
Yeah, and I
Very
think all
important.
of them is still on the rationale of what I believe. I feel like this, like English classes or Spanish classes,
Mm,
they need to be a moment of fun as well. Like it doesn't need to be funny all the time, and you'll be like you are not going to be rolling and laughing all the time. But it
mm.
needs to be something a little bit softer, because come on, life is so rough, you know.
It is. Life is brutal. Like life is hard enough. We don't need to have like a class that's just like draining of our
Yeah,
time and energy.
and that's the feedback I have, not only from my direct students, but from the teachers' students. It's like it's not a moment that I'm going to be thinking, I don't know, I'm going to be tense and oh my God, I forgot that phrasal verb. It's like, well, I'm going to go there, chill out, learn something, and they understand it. the whole as a process, right? They don't see like, well, will I be fluent in 6 months? Probably not.
I'm gonna go with no. I'm just gonna go with no. No, but the idea of we can dig into this a little bit. Well, since you brought it up, the
Mm,
idea that, and I think that this is, I'm not really sure why this idea is so pervasive, that classes need to be entertaining and funny and light all the time, as opposed to engaging and fun and interesting.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Have you, and I don't know if it comes from because we have to market ourselves on social media, or we have to get attention somehow, but I think that this idea of like it's pervasive, it's just going around ELT, at least from what I've seen, is that everything needs to be entertaining as opposed to effective and engaging.
I think there's this showmanship that goes back to theater, right? Like,
Yes, okay, go ahead.
uh, I feel like I myself in the past would be a person who would focus lots on in the like on entertainment and having the students laughing them like the most they could, so they would be like relaxed
Hmm.
and not necessarily learning things. And I feel like taking it slow, like taking a step back and looking at your whole practice
Mm,
as you have to see and have to have your KPIs and in order to see what is going on in which side, right?
mm,
If the student comes and says, well, I'm happy, but they're still committing the same mistake of I is, for instance,
mm,
is my business about happiness or about English, right? About a language, if the student is still committing that kind of mistake. So
mm.
I feel like during the pandemic, I had to take a step back and see where like the showmanship lied and where the teaching lied, the learning lied, and bringing these elements together into the class.
Because it's not that we can't be entertainers. I myself happen to be hilarious, but
Look at me, I am the most hilarious person I know. Hello.
and humble. I mean, we're also humble to boot. So no, but you have to have fun and you have to relate to your students and things like that. But you mentioned something interesting because love the business side of it, KPIs. So do you have some measurements that you like to go through with your teachers, and how do with you don't have to go into lots of details, but like tracking the progress and making sure that you have struck the balance between those three characteristics that you mentioned.
Yeah, I have the feedback. But I think feedback is like essential from both parts,
Mm,
being from the teachers saying like if they feel like the students are making progress and the students themselves. So I never talk to them like at the same time. We don't have like WhatsApp group, but every once in a while I send like, hey Kelly, what's up? How are your classes with João? Are they going well? Do you feel like you're learning? And the
mm-hmm,
same thing happens on the other side, but with the teacher I also have the class, like the recorded class, that we can talk about some points, about some linkers, about what happened from one exercise to the other, if things are cohesive inside of the whole class.
mm-hmm.
I feel like it happens in both ways to have these KPIs, and of course it happens as well when they renew or not their contract. And it's very rare and for a student to give me like a proper like like an evasive answer, like I'm not renewing and I'm not going to tell you why. Bye. Normally something like financially
Yeah.
oriented. Sometimes like their company was bought by a French group and now out of the blue they have to learn like forget English, let's learn French, and that's not
Yeah.
something I have yet. So I understand where these perspectives come from,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like we need to talk. I think like communication, as I've taken advertise. No, just kidding.
Yes, it is also one of my specialties.
But communication is so essential. Like I have to know what the student is thinking, and like all my stakeholders, another business word,
Mm,
all my stakeholders are thinking, right? Like from like the student to the teacher to the person who's helping me with the content on Instagram. I have to like make them all like sound cohesive somehow.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. And also, what? Now I got lots of questions. So then, what would you do in a scenario where the student is not really struggling financially, wants to continue, but doesn't really see progress? How would you how from the administrative side of it, how do you kind of tackle that and say, okay, what's the problem? Find the root of the cause of the unhappiness. How do you kind of go about that if you have someone that's just not necessarily happy with the, I don't know if it has happened, but
Yeah, it's been like, I also think that's something that is two-sided because sometimes it's something that is more school-oriented in
mm,
the sense of maybe changing materials, maybe changing the teacher, maybe changing like the schedule of the classes because perhaps the classes are too early and they're not like being they're not taking advantage of the class the early it is. Like there
right.
are a million reasons in this side.
Mm-hmm.
I also feel like one of the students have a tendency, in general, I would say, of coming to those classes once or twice a week, and hoping that miracles will happen in the like in 1 or 2 hours, right? So
It's like
I
just like sleeping on top of the book and you just absorb the information.
and I feel like there's this whole other thing that is, what does this student do effectively outside of the classroom that is not necessarily homework?
Right.
Like I can assign you the whole I don't know, like essential grammar in practice. I can give you that whole book and ask you to do all that.
Yeah.
It
But
doesn't mean that you're going to be super more fluent than you were before. So are you? I try when this happened, and it's happened at least twice. I
mm,
went through this direction of checking teachers and materials to see if everything was all right.
mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm.
also taking a look at your routine and seeing how you are in, like, how is English built on that,
Got
right?
it.
In this beginning of the year, actually, my students, well, the majority, like, we had like a feedback thinking about what are the ways that they can practice English outside of the class.
Mm,
And they came up with ideas, like each of them came up with different ideas, and we came up with a Jamboard full of post-its, uh,
okay.
and that we revisit once in a while to say like, hey, do you think these objectives are being met? Do you think you're being able to keep like, oh no, I think I set myself to read a text once a week, and I feel like that's too much. Can
Mm-hmm.
I drop it down like to one every 15 days? Said fine, as long as you're keeping that, because it's not only this miracle 1 hour that is going to make you flourish and achieve the best of your abilities. I wish it was, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, it's more about consistency and habits and being able to like put those things together. That makes sense. Yeah, I also feel like maybe you probably just the way you described it take into consideration that some teachers, every teacher has their own style, regardless of how you're training them and the support that you give them with their language awareness or professional development. But everybody has their own style. I have my style, you have yours, and everybody's an individual. And it sounds as if maybe you do perhaps take into consideration that maybe personalities just don't match.
yeah, I think so. It's fun to think like there's a teenager, a student who was a teenager, and
Mm.
he was my student of like last year,
Yeah.
and this year now with one of my teachers.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to connect to him up to a point like with the entertainment, with his taste in general. I
Okay.
knew The Simpsons. That's like the most I knew. And
Right.
this other teacher, he knows like One Piece and anime and etc. And I watched their classes, and it seems like a whole different person talking to this other teacher. And I'm
Oh,
like,
see?
wow, you were able to like to go there to take that extra mile. That is something that I don't like. It's not because I didn't try. It's because it's not like in my repertoire to talk about or to know about. I can bring one piece and talk about specifically that anime for one class, but I don't follow that. I'm not gonna watch the whole thing
It
just
almost
in
feels like
order to.
contrived, right? You're like forcing something. It's not this like
Yeah.
natural connection that you have with them.
Yes, yes, and it's very interesting to see how this, like, there at first this teenager, he was very like he felt like some weirdness going on because of a new teacher and etc.
Oh yeah,
But
there's
once
they're like reluctant. Like, no, I don't want to do it. I'm comfortable where I am.
Mhm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but once like they got and like he saw that the other teacher also had some tastes that would also connect to him somehow,
Mm-hmm.
besides The Simpsons, uh, I feel like he's at ease again, you know? So I feel like when you are at ease, you are most likely to flourish in in the environment and to achieve your goals with the language, right?
Do you take that into consideration when you take the clients, like when you, I'm gonna have lots of, again, lots of questions. We'll end soon, I promise, because we've been here for a while. But do you take that in consideration when you have clients come in? Because I'm assuming that you do the needs analysis and you kind of level them and figure out what they're going to do in terms of a course. But then do you also look at who would be the best fit in terms of the teacher? Depending on scheduling, of course, but
Yeah, I think the scheduling and the best fit as a teacher, I think they're, but I have to say that my the general audience that comes to me, like
mm,
even though I feel like there are teachers who are a little better fit for one or for the other,
mm,
I don't feel today there's anybody in my team that I would be like, oh no, this kind of student can never go to X teacher
they
or to
would
Y
like they would
teacher.
have like conflict or something like that.
Yeah, because I feel like everybody's pretty much on the same standard, you know. Like I think
Okay.
well, being humble again. Uh, I feel like
Humility is our strong point, people.
I feel like I really did a good job at like having them equalized and kind of like vibrate in the same way that I do, and
Okay.
therefore present the same service and same rationale, same whatever to all the students they have.
I think that's really important. So the one thing that I've seen, well, from my experience of working in schools, is that, well, the few schools that I've worked for, I haven't worked for many, because I've been on my own for a while, but the few schools that I used to work for, I've worked for, gosh, three or four at this point, is that there was such a big difference because the coordinators always had this idea of, I want to let my teachers like be the teachers that they are, and you have freedom with materials and the way that you develop things, and as long as you progress and you meet certain criteria, we'll say, of like the curriculum, then they really wanted to give people freedom. But what actually that turned into, I've noticed in my experience, was that the students had strong preferences for some teachers and were not willing to move from teacher to teacher. They would cancel contracts or try or contact the teacher outside of the school and try to set up private lessons, because they were just not accepting of moving teacher from semester to semester, and it turned into kind of a quality control issue because the students weren't receiving the same level, I guess, or the same, not that everything has to be standardized, but they weren't getting the same thing from all the different teachers that they would go to.
Hmm, hmm. Yeah,
if
I
that
have
makes sense.
this. I have lived this
Right. Have you
very.
felt this? Like where you, because the schools that I worked for, at least one of them had a like a Hodizu, like where we every semester they changed teachers because the coordinator and the owner of the school was adamant that you don't get comfortable with one teacher because that's how students get lazy. It's like, okay, well, that's a weird opinion, but sure. And then so they would change every semester, and there was some semesters, being humble, that my students would go to another teacher and then they would threaten. They were like, nope, we want to go back with Kelly. And I will say mostly, but not because I'm a fantastic teacher, but mostly because I had business experience outside in the US because I worked in businesses before I moved here. And so I could tell them like insights and information that another teacher didn't have because they didn't live that experience, you know? And so they
Mhm.
wanted to stay with me because we would talk about other things, not just like the language, but we would talk about cultural things that they would have to encounter when they had meetings or presentations or whatever they were doing. Do you see what I'm saying? So there was like,
I feel like the situation that I've most faced in my institution time was something
like institution time sounds like you were in prison.
of prison. Well,
Okay, nope, just keep it like that. My institution time.
is that one let's picture like the student was my student in basic 2,
Mm,
and then they went to teacher X in inter 1, and then they came back to me at inter 2.
mm-hmm.
But then like inter 2 was the moment for you to learn, I don't know, present perfect, but the teacher from inter 1 hadn't taught properly even the simple past.
Mm,
So I always felt like I always feared like the beginning of the semester and the end of the ending of semester as
yeah.
well, because it feels like uh, I felt like my work was useless in the sense of
Mm.
I try to make this beautiful thing, like I give you a perfect ball, and then the next one goes there like,
With a hammer, and it's just like, nope.
like, and then when it comes back I have to do double the work,
Mm,
so the development of the student is also harmed in the way, because in the time that he was supposed to learning one, he's learning two. So this
yeah.
this during my institution time, this, this been like the worst by far, like not even. I've had students that had problems when they needed to switch teachers, like to come to me or to go like to other teachers as well.
Hmm.
But I think the most frustrating was like for sure was this kind of situation that the other teacher was supposed to do something and they didn't.
Yeah, and it's not that they did it in a different way. It's that they didn't do it, that it wasn't effective. Because we have like our, like we all have kind of our standards of quality. Like it needs to be at a certain level. And sometimes those don't align. And then it becomes very difficult because what do you do? In the institutions you can, or the private schools, language schools, wherever you're working, you can't go and say, well, fulano didn't teach. This teacher didn't teach. They're not doing a good job. I mean, you can't do that with your peers. It's like, but
Well,
then,
you can, but still it shouldn't. But
I mean, you can, but then it's going to cause conflict and tension, and then there's going to be, other issues that you're going to have to deal with, like professional relationship issues that you're going to have to deal with. But it's hard when institutions don't really provide this kind of, and that's why I had you on, is because we were talking about kind of this leveling of like, here, anything that you need, you feel that you're weak here, like the teacher that you had mentioned, you feel like you're weak here or you want to investigate more of phonology. Yep, go ahead, take a course, invest in yourself, like become a better professional, and that type of stuff, like finding people that are good in their niches. So I think that you try to get everybody on the same level, like you said, on the same vibration and the same wavelength. Everybody's kind of like working together because you have this a similar perspective.
Yeah, and it's all about the support as well. I think all my teachers, like they can come to me, like I'm never gonna say, hey, tomorrow you have a student, her name is Kelly, from 10 to 11, see you. Like we're gonna talk thoroughly about that student. You're going to have a demo lesson with this student that is not going to even be paid from the student's point of view,
Hmm.
just for you to understand a little bit better how this is going to happen. I'm going to send you tons of previously prepared material so you can have like an idea of how to tackle this material or perhaps the student, and then
Hmm.
we go adjusting, like fine tuning things how they should be.
Right, right. Do you ever, just as a final question, and then I promise I'll let you go, because if y'all don't know, it's like past 10 o'clock at night, and we're trying to, we've been teaching all day and trying to make coherent thoughts here for you guys. Um, welcome to the episode. um, so I get it, and I think it's like you provide the support and everybody works together. It's collaborative. We try to get on the same wavelength. Do you ever fear that the people that give training, or that, like even yourself working with the other ones, do you ever fear or consider that you would become like an echo chamber, that everyone is so aligned that there's never that devil's advocate, there's never that person that kind of, you know, instigates a little like, well, that's not my perspective. I see it from a different view.
Hmm. I see it perhaps happening, but if to be honest, like
Yeah.
if there was anyone to be the devil, it would be me. So if the devil is the boss, like that's the lowest you can go already. But I feel like I'm very transparent,
Mm.
and like it's something that I've come to, hello therapy, something that I've come to admire with my own self is that I have like a very good and open heart. Like it
Mm-hmm.
might happen. I don't see that ever happening. One other fear that strikes me sometimes is like,
Mm.
like students might leave me to have classes with them like alone, or even the teacher might like say, okay, I've taken advantage of everything this school can give me, and now thank you, deuces, see you later. It's also a possibility,
But
and
do
I
you think
cannot.
that's a bad thing?
Huh?
But do you think that's a bad thing
Which part?
that the teachers move on?
Not at all. I feel like I had to move on to get to the place where I am, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if they have to as well, I'm super fine. But I mean, there are risks, and having this school is a risk itself,
It
right?
is.
So it's all about taking risks.
But I do, yes, it is about taking risks, but I do like your perspective on like why you treat your teachers the way that you treat them, in terms of financially, in terms of development. I think it's really important. I align with you in terms of our vibes. We kind of are on the same page because it's all about quality. And I think that's like that, and it's about the education. It's about like the learner's journey and making sure that the clients are actually getting the services that they need. So I think that's why, and the teachers also, you know, I think that's why we kind of vibe together.
Yeah, like
No, but
now.
we have to think about these things. Like my utmost thing is like I never want to produce terrible things. Like I always want something to be valuable for someone, because like it has to have some sort of value. So I think that's why I really liked the way that you constructed when I was asking you and we were talking before, like how you constructed your business and why you do the things that you do. And I just think I think it's lovely. So
Thank
congrats.
you, thank
Yeah.
you. Wow, thank you so much. So nice to hear something from a person like you.
Oh no, but it's true. I mean, I think we should celebrate like the good things that we're doing. Like you're providing good services, and I just, yeah, I think it's important to stay focused on that, eventually the money will come and there.
Yeah, and the business goes on, like with or without this or that student, this or that teacher. I feel like it's all like the evolution of the thing is going to happen. And again, Spark is a baby, right? We're 8 months old at this point, so
Oh, you're a baby spark.
baby Spark at this point. But there's a spark, you see, there's a spark.
There's a spark, yeah. So then, do you have any final words? No, but do you have any words for people who are thinking that they're not being either compensated or they're not being stimulated in a way that's like good for their professional development? What would you say in terms of advice?
I would say the world is your oyster, especially in the sense of there's no playbook.
Mm,
Like, I know that there are private businesses like this, schools that happen like that. I have very recently, there were two friends of mine, one former student who became a teacher, and
ooh,
another and another CELTA as well.
mhm,
They came to me like, "What do you do? How did you change things from one to another?" I said, "I did like this, but you can do whatever you want. Like
yeah.
you can come up with everything that makes sense to you. Like if the from the price of like from." If you're going to have like an enrollment, if you're going to blah, 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 everything is up to you and you can adjust along the way.
Hmm.
Don't think that the playbook has been written and everybody's going to follow this one way or another. Write your own.
Yeah. And especially I think the ones that are quite successful are the ones that are very passionate, but also they have very firm beliefs. They have firm beliefs in what, like, this is what I believe the classes should be. This is what I believe teaching and education, that content, this is how my belief system, but are also open to new possibilities.
Hmm. Hmm.
Because and you seem to strike that balance as well. Like, this is what I believe, but also there might be something else that I don't know. And I'm willing and open to kind of, keep my mind open for new possibilities. Yeah.
That's it. That's how we should all think.
Love the message. Okay. So the name of the school is Spark. We'll put all of the connections there. It's cute. It's like a little lightning bolt.
Yes, that's right. Spark. And that's why I wanted to name it education, right? Because it's not just a school. It's like it's about a whole bigger thing than just teaching and learning, right?
Yeah, it's your vision, like, and that's what you bring to it. I like it. So Spark Education, we'll link everything there. And Hiki is super wonderful, as you can see, and we're humble people. I mean, we're hilarious and we're wonderful, and we prioritize all the right things. I'm being sarcastic if anybody can't pick up on that. But yes, no, you are wonderful. And so we've had great conversations, but they can contact you, and I'm sure that anybody who's looking for advice or just wants to chat or
Yes, doors always open. WhatsApp, Instagram, LinkedIn, like I don't know, smoke communication, like from afar. I'm gonna
smoke signals, just smoke signals. Like, what? Can you tell me how you do the needs analysis? No, but it is good. I do like when just kind of picking other professionals' brains, and you're super open to that too. But just kind of seeing like, oh, how do you do that? That's interesting. This is how I do it. I wonder if there's a hybrid of this that would work even better. So
Mhm.
it's nice to collaborate.
I think so too.
Yeah, it's great. All right. Well, I wish you the utmost success with Spark, and hopefully, Baby Spark will become a raging fire, and then we can really do smoke signals.
Ah, that's true.
See? Uh, but thank you for coming on, and we will see everybody later.
Thank you for having me, Kelly.
Of
Have a
course.
wonderful time.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Real Talk and ELT. Want to join the conversation? Head on over to Instagram at Kelly Pennington ELT and send me a message. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube or Spotify channel to stay up to date, and of course, take care of yourself, your health, your vibe, and your tribe. Until next time.